Have you ever considered what it means for the tabletop role-playing games we cherish when the creative reins shift, away from just one company to the broader community?
That's a really timely question,
Mhm.
especially thinking back to that whole shakeup in the tabletop world. Early 2023, wasn't it?
Yeah, the OGL stuff.
Right? The open game license for D&D, it had been this like foundational thing forever, letting creators make and share 5e stuff. And then suddenly it looked like it might change.
Oh, I remember that. It felt like a real rug pull for so many people, didn't it? Creators, fans,
Yeah,
wondering if their work was suddenly on shaky ground.
exactly. Livelihoods, passion projects,
Mm.
all potentially impacted by decisions made, well, pretty far removed from the actual gaming table.
I vividly recall that feeling, that uncertainty just spreading everywhere, like the ground we built our campaigns on wasn't quite stable anymore.
Yeah, people definitely started looking around, not just at 5e itself, but at the future, wondering if they really owned their own creative contributions.
That disillusionment, it really became a catalyst, didn't it?
It absolutely did. It kicked off this big search for alternatives, for game systems that were built on openness, putting control back with players and independent creators.
And that's where Kobold Press came in with Tales of the Valiant.
Right, into that context, yeah.
And wow, that Kickstarter campaign, it wasn't just a small thing, it was huge.
Massive success.
It really showed how much people wanted something like this. Compatible with 5e, sure, but fundamentally about, transparency, creator ownership, freedom.
It was such a powerful statement from the community, that overwhelming support. It just underscored how important that moment was. People really wanted a different kind of relationship with their RPG system.
So that's what we're diving into today, then.
Exactly. We're going to explore where Tales of the Valiant came from, look at its core mechanics and design ideas, stack it up against 5e, and really understand its place in this, well, evolving TTRPG landscape.
Okay, so Tales of the Valiant didn't just appear overnight. It started as something called Project Black Flag. Sounds kind of rebellious.
It definitely had that vibe. Project Black Flag was Kobold Press's direct, very deliberate response to that whole OGL controversy.
And the mission was?
Pretty clear, actually. Preserve the core 5e mechanics of the system tons of people knew and liked, but make sure it could evolve independently, free from corporate control, deciding its future.
So keep the familiar D20 feel, the basic structure, but also say, hey, the future of this game belongs to the players and creators, not just a boardroom.
That's the heart of it. And a really big part of Project Black Flag was how community-focused it was right from the start.
How so?
Well, they really prioritized open communication, ran extensive play tests, genuinely listened to feedback. It wasn't just asking, they acted on it.
So a totally collaborative process, building it with the community, not just for them.
Exactly. That's a pretty big departure from how major systems usually get developed, often behind closed doors.
Yeah, it definitely feels different.
And then the name change, rebranding to Tales of the Valiant, that wasn't just cosmetic.
What did it symbolize?
Independence, really. A kind of heroic creativity springing from the community, empowerment for players and creators. It signaled this wasn't just another 5e clone. It had its own identity, its own values.
And in doing that, it kind of challenged the whole idea that RPG systems have to be controlled by one big company.
It really did. It showed that a more decentralized model could work, where games grow based on the passion of the community, not just corporate strategy.
A potential paradigm shift, maybe, moving away from that single top-down control?
I think that's a crucial insight, yeah, towards community-led evolution.
Okay, so strong philosophy behind it. But let's get into the nuts and bolts. What does Tales of the Valiant actually do differently? Gameplay, rules, while still being 5e compatible.
Well, that's the interesting part. It manages this balancing act. It keeps that core 5e DNA so veterans can jump right in, pretty much.
No steep learning curve, then.
Not really. But it also introduces a lot of thoughtful innovations, both in mechanics and just the feel of play.
Okay, give me some examples. What jumps out?
Spellcasting is a big one. Tales of the Valiant uses more modular systems.
Modular? How does that work?
Think of it like, instead of just picking spells from a fixed list, you get more tools to combine magical effects in unique ways. It lets players craft more individual magic styles.
Ah, so less, I'm a wizard with these specific spells, and more, here's how my character's magic actually works.
Exactly. Leads to more varied characters, richer backstories maybe. Then there are ancestries.
Instead of races.
Yeah, and they're more dynamic. They come with richer cultural lore, more options that actually impact gameplay. Your character's heritage feels more significant.
So it's not just flavor text. It genuinely shapes what your character can do and how they fit in the world.
Precisely. And the class structures, they've been reimagined a bit.
Hmm.
More player agency in how your character develops.
Meaning more choices as you level up?
More flexibility, yeah.
Yeah.
More control over your character's path, allowing for different builds, even within the same class.
That always feels good as a player, having meaningful choices.
Absolutely. Skill systems are expanded too, with more nuanced ways to interact with things, and tool proficiencies are designed to actually encourage creative problem solving.
Oh, thank goodness. So my tools might actually do something beyond ticking a box.
Huh. Yes, potentially. Maybe help you bypass a lock, build something crucial, not just sit there.
Making skills feel more integrated, offering alternatives to just hitting things.
Exactly. Combat also gets some innovations. More encouragement for strategy, tactical positioning, using abilities together, less just trading blows back and forth.
That could definitely add engagement. Sometimes 5e combat can feel a bit, well, straightforward.
Right, and the spells themselves. Redesigned a bit to focus more on theme and utility, not just raw damage. They often have more interesting, varied effects. Fits with that modular magic idea.
So magic feels more flavorful, more versatile. Cool.
And there's more. Class pathways offer different routes within a class. Environmental interactions are emphasized, making the world feel more reactive.
That sounds great for immersion, making the world feel alive.
Totally. Initiative is streamlined for smoother combat. Exploration rules encourage more tactile world building from the GM. Resource management is more integrated too.
So tracking food, water, torches actually matters more. Becomes a strategic thing.
Yeah, adds another layer to adventuring decisions.
Huh.
Beyond mechanics, there's a real emphasis on inclusive content, diverse representation, balanced progression, community-driven adventures that adapt to player choices.
Wow, it really sounds like they went through the 5e framework and asked, how can we boost player power, deepen the engagement, make it more inclusive and dynamic?
I think that sums it up well. It honors the familiarity, but isn't afraid to try new things. Lots of fresh possibilities for everyone.
So we know what it adds, but how does it feel compared to standard 5e at the table? What are those key differences in practice?
Well, even with the compatibility, the differences in, let's say, execution can be pretty noticeable. Mechanically, you see that greater player agency shine through more.
Like with the spell casting you mentioned, or tactical combat choices.
Exactly. Compared to 5e's, often more standardized ways of doing things, a TOTD player might feel they have more levers to pull within the rules to customize their approach.
Okay. And what about the style? The content?
TOTV definitely leans into inclusive and diverse narratives more explicitly. It aims to represent a broader range of stories than perhaps 5e's official content historically has, though 5e's evolving too, of course.
Which makes sense given that community-driven aspect we talked about, reflecting more voices.
Absolutely. And that community focus is a massive difference. TOTV is built on that open source idea, lots of community input. 5e's model is more corporate-driven, traditionally less transparent about development.
So with TOTV, it feels like players and creators are more like active partners in the game's life, not just consumers.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
Looking at ancestries and classes again, TOTV offers more dynamic options, more cultural depth, more mechanical variety than 5e's often more defined templates.
Which leads to
More narrative flexibility, probably. It encourages player-driven stories, maybe more than the often GM-guided narratives you sometimes see in 5e campaigns. The mechanics themselves support that player input into the story.
Interesting. Even the adventures are different.
Yeah, TOTV tends to feature more player-adaptive adventures, often community-created ones, more variability compared to official 5e campaigns, which can have more fixed paths. Magic systems, like we said, more open-ended in TOTV versus 5e's defined lists.
Again, that theme of player control and customization coming through.
It really does. Resource management in TOTV aims to be more strategic, more immersive than the sometimes simplified tracking in 5e. Progression offers multiple paths within a class, unlike 5e's generally more linear progression.
Sounds like they really targeted areas where players wanted maybe more depth or more meaningful choices.
It seems that way. Exploration, the environment meant to be more interactive, more story-rich in TOTV. Representation is core, allowing for more diverse characters compared to some older 5e content. And finally, that leadership and design difference. Collaborative with fan feedback versus top-down corporate.
So, bottom line, familiar mechanics for 5e players, but the overall experience playing TOTV could feel quite different. More agency, community ownership, diversity, inclusivity.
I think that's fair.
Right.
And it's good that the transition seems smooth, and you can even mix and match content from both systems.
That compatibility is a huge plus, isn't it? Lets people try TOTV without ditching everything they already know or own for 5e.
Definitely a smart move. Makes it much more accessible.
You mentioned Kobold Press really values community input. How does that actually work, especially with their support for the Open RPG Creative License, the ORC license?
You've really set a high bar for engagement. They do open playtesting, actively inviting players to shape the game.
So not just testing, but actually influencing the design.
Yes. They host interactive discussions on forums, social media, use polls, surveys to guide mechanics based on what players prefer. It's not just lip service. You can see the feedback having an impact.
That's cool.
And they welcome community art, content. They keep people updated regularly, transparently. They encourage homebrew rules, personal tweaks, fosters a real sense of ownership.
That level of openness does feel kind of rare.
It is. They have open chats with designers, community figures, run contests for ideas. A lot of the unique stuff in 2DV came directly from player experiences and suggestions. Plus, they maintain a strong online presence for collaboration.
It feels like a very bottom-up approach, building trust, shared investment, like everyone who cares has a stake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Unlike the traditional model where decisions are often internal, Kobold Press makes this community-led design central, and backing the ORC license strongly reinforces that.
What's the deal with the ORC license again?
It's designed to be an irrevocable, community-owned license, basically offering creators more long-term security and control over their work compared to the uncertainties that surfaced around the OGL.
It's fascinating how that OGL controversy just spurred so much movement towards transparency and community power in the TTRPG space. TOTV seems right at the heart of that.
It really does. And this community-backed way of doing things isn't just a reaction. It's proving to be a really effective model for game design, too. Agile, responsive. It works.
Now, TOTV is obviously a big name here, but it wasn't the only 5e compatible system that popped up after the OGL stuff, was it?
Oh, not at all. You're absolutely right. That whole incident really sparked a wave of creativity. Loads of independent creators started developing their own 5e compatible systems. It was a collective shift. People looking for that familiar base, but with different design goals, more autonomy.
Like an explosion of innovation within that 5e framework. People wanting more options.
Definitely. You've got notable ones like Cubicle 7 C7D20 system. That one really focuses on narrative, thematic depth. Then there's EN Publishing's Level Up, Advanced 5e, which aims for more complexity, more tactical crunch.
Okay, so different flavors even there.
And Shadowdark RPG got a lot of buzz, too. It blends that old school feel with more modern design ideas. Really popular.
Wow, quite a range of approaches just in those few, each finding its own niche, catering to different tastes.
Exactly. And there are others, too. Stuff from Montecook Games, always known for imaginative worlds, unique mechanics. Paizo, obviously huge with Pathfinder, has their own takes. Arc Dream Publishing does modular adventures. Green Ronin often focuses on political intrigue. It's a really diverse ecosystem now.
Almost like a buffet of 5e-ish options, something for pretty much everyone.
That's a good way to think about it. And Tales of the Valiant, in that context, really stands out as a great example of what happens when that community engagement meets inspired game design. It's more than just another alternative. It kind of symbolizes this whole evolution.
It really makes sense then why fans might see these systems as, like, insurance policies. It's not just about having another game, is it? It's about securing the future of their hobby, maybe.
That's a really sharp way to put it. For a lot of players, yeah, adopting these alternatives is about taking back some control, lessening dependence on one company's decisions.
So reasons like independence from corporate changes, knowing you actually own your homebrew content without weird licensing worries, finding more inclusive storytelling options.
All of those, absolutely. Plus, getting access to maybe enhanced mechanics beyond base 5e, having more flexibility in character building in the narratives you create, and being part of that collaborative, community-driven development process.
It points towards more personalized gaming, right? More adaptable rules, freedom to explore different themes without top-down limits.
Exactly. And that feeling of community-inclusive decisions, supportive spaces for innovation. That's key. Players feel like they have a real stake in where the game goes.
It's empowering, feeling like you have agency to shape your own gaming future, having these kinds of resilient options available.
It really is. And it reflects this broader trend in RPGs, I think, where collaboration and integrity are becoming more and more important. People are seeking out games that align with their values, their creativity.
So looking ahead then, what do you see as the long-term impact of all these alternative systems? What's the future of D&D style play look like if it's less centralized?
Well, I think we're heading towards a much more diverse, much more dynamic landscape. The old days of maybe one or two systems totally dominating, that's being challenged.
By all these independent voices and different visions?
Exactly. Alternatives like Tales of the Valiant are redefining what 5e style fantasy play can be, offering paths forward that aren't just dictated by corporate strategy.
So maybe a richer ecosystem, more niches served, more design experiments.
I think so. This growth empowers players, encourages experimentation. It could lead to RPGs evolving in ways we haven't even thought of yet. The spirit of collaboration is really opening up new possibilities.
Players becoming more active shapers of the hobby's future, not just passive consumers.
Precisely. And for Tales of the Valiant specifically, what's Kobold Press doing to make sure it sticks around, to support it long term?
They seem really committed. They've got a clear roadmap, regular expansions, adventure modules to keep things fresh.
That constant stream of new content is vital, isn't it? Keeps players engaged. What else?
Big focus on digital integration, too, making sure it works well on virtual tabletops, which is huge now.
Yeah.
And they're sticking with ongoing updates based on community feedback, keeping that collaborative spirit alive.
That responsiveness is so important for a game built on community input.
Totally. They're also planning regional and thematic expansions, broadening the world, offering new adventure types, and continuing to actively support community-created content, nurturing that whole ecosystem.
Sounds like they're covering all the bases.
Pretty much. They're organizing collaborative storytelling events, doing outreach to bring in new players, developing more world-building tools for GMs, exploring ways to distribute fan content, offering webinars and workshops, even creating advanced GM tools and hitting industry conferences.
Wow. That really shows a serious commitment to evolving the game with its community, making sure it stays dynamic and adaptable for the long haul.
It really does. So what about the role of publishers like Kobold Press in all this? They're not one of the giants, but they've clearly made a big splash.
Kobold Press holds a really interesting, really crucial spot. They're a respected mid-sized publisher, and their success, their whole approach, open, collaborative, design-focused, it highlights this trend towards independent publishing. Models that prioritize community and strong game design.
They've kind of shown you don't need to be massive to have a real impact to drive innovation in the TTRPG space.
Exactly. Their leadership is inspiring for other indies. Shows how being agile, genuinely listening to your community, how that can lead to really powerful, really well-loved games. Publishers like Kobold Press, charting their own course, they're setting new precedents for RPGs as shared creative journeys.
So, wrapping this up, Tales of the Valiant really feels like a significant moment, doesn't it?
Mm.
Born from that desire for creative freedom, community ownership, after all the 5e uncertainty.
Absolutely. It manages that tricky blend of familiar mechanics that people love with genuinely innovative design, and all built on that transparent, collaborative foundation.
And as more creators and players embrace these independent paths, explore systems like TOTV, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it, what kind of vibrant, diverse storytelling ecosystems are going to emerge, truly putting the power of imagination back into the player's hands.
It's a really exciting future to think about.
Definitely. And on that thought, we should give a quick shout out to LitRPG Reads, where we found some great insights for this, and to Paul Bello Finefellow. We'd also love to hear what you, listening in, think about all this. Where do you see tabletop RPGs heading? Let us know in the comments below.